Today we're going to be learning about the gunpowder empires. At the end of today's lesson, you should be able to compare and contrast the religion, ideology, science, and arts of the Ottoman, Safavid, and Mughal empires. From 1300 to 1700, three gunpowder empires dominated parts of Europe, Africa, and Asia. If you look at the map, the salmon-colored empire, or kind of close to pink, is the Ottoman Empire, which is the first we'll talk about. Then we'll talk about the Safavid Empire, which is in purple. And lastly, we'll talk about the Mughal Empire, which is the one you see in yellow. These empires were unique but shared some similarities. All three were able to conquer neighboring people because they formed strong armies using rifles and artillery, hence the name gunpowder empires. When gunpowder started to spread through the Silk Road and the Indian Ocean maritime trade routes, people's armies began to grow because they had use of this new technology. All three empires were Islamic and ruled by Muslim leaders with well-organized governments made up of loyal bureaucrats. If you remember in our trade lesson, we also talked about how these Muslim leaders were open to trade and wanted to grow empires and have access to goods, which was in contrast to China, who kind of closed off their borders and wanted to stay to themselves. All three empires blended with their culture with neighboring societies to create a high point of Islamic culture. So we're going to look at the Ottoman Empire first. So looking at this map, Adrianople becomes the Ottoman capital and is renamed Edirne. Second, the Ottoman victory leads to domination of the Balkans. Third, Mongol leader Timur gives Ottomans their first major defeat. Fourth, in the 1400s, the Ottomans control routes to the Indies but limit trade. And then fifth, the Ottomans conquer Constantinople, ending 1,000 years of Byzantine rule. So looking at this map, I want you to think about, what did the Ottomans use to form a powerful army and expand their territory? Around 1300, the Muslim Turks in Anatolia were unified to form the Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans used muskets and cannons to form a powerful army and expand their territory. So this is an example of the Ottoman military, specifically Janissaries. There's their cannons that they're using, which was new technology. The Ottoman army included 30,000 elite soldiers called Janissaries who were slaves that were trained to be loyal to the government. They were often captured as young boys from other lands by the Ottoman army and then included into the army and raised up to be loyal to their subjects, to the Ottoman Empire. In 1453, the Ottomans attacked Constantinople and conquered the Byzantine Empire. These are pictures of them conquering. By the late 1600s, the Ottomans expanded into the Middle East, North Africa, and Eastern Europe. Ottoman rulers were called sultans, and they governed with absolute power, meaning that there was no one to challenge their power. The greatest Ottoman sultan was Suleiman the Magnificent. He came into power in 1520. Under Suleiman, the Ottoman armies attacked Eastern Europe, and the empire reached its height. By the mid-1500s, Suleiman was the most powerful king in the world. So here are some of his greatest accomplishments. He was creating a stable government for his empire. He was known as Suleiman the Lawgiver because he created a law code that governed criminal and civil issues. He created a simplified and fair tax system to raise money for his empire, and he granted freedom of worship to Christians and Jews living in the empire. So even though it wasn't necessarily Christian or Jewish dominated, he allowed people to worship freely. Art and architecture and poetry flourished under Suleiman as the Ottoman Empire experienced a cultural renaissance, which is kind of like a rebirth of culture. So examples of this are the mosque that you see that was built on the right, the Mosque of Suleiman by an architect named Sinan. And on the left, there's a picture of, or it's a miniature picture of done during that time. All right, so how did the Ottoman Empire fall? To maintain their power against rivals, Suleiman and other Ottoman sultans executed their brothers and jailed their sons. So they knew that their sons and their brothers were their competition for power, so they got rid of them so that they could maintain power. But this kind of backfired because it led to progressively weaker leaders because all the strong ones had been taken out. By the outbreak of World War I in 1914, the Ottoman Empire was so weak it was known as the sick man of Europe. All right, let's move on to the Safavid Empire. The Safavids were Turks